Matt, are you raring to go?
One half minute. Half a minute.
30, 29, 28. It's wonderful to see you.
All set.
We are going to have, well, actually, I have to say this is one of those Sundays where I woke up this morning and had to read the stuff.
Oh, because of the stuff that's going on. If you feel like you want to do something else for final hit,
Don't you have Andrea singing?
I know.
So what do you want to do? This is my song.
I think that's better.
What's that? 159?
I mean, yeah. That sounds like the right thing. Our opening hymn is Ancient Mother and Mother.
And switch it. Let's start with 159 and let's do ancient. You want to do that being choir?
It'll be fine, either way. That'll be fun. That'll be
You know what? Let's keep it. Do that at the beginning, and then we'll do 159 at the end. All right?
I'm ready to rock.
Let us now settle into a spirit of worship with a moment of quiet to be followed by the music of River by Peter Cater. You're also invited at this time to light a silent candle of joy or sorrow. Service preparation is, at its best, an attempt to approximate the way we think the world will be when the service happens. And there are those moments when what happens the night before or the day before a sermon require adjustment. So I'm going to beg your willingness for Matt and I to make some shifts this morning in order to be able to speak more clearly to this moment in our shared existence, in order that we might walk away from this service having had an opportunity to contemplate what is deepest in our hearts as we have arrived in this place this morning. To wit, our opening words this morning, our chalice lighting this morning are the words of Adrian Rich. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world.
The piece that we're singing is called Hallelujah, and Hallelujah means hallelujah. It's a piece from the traditional Muskogee or Creek Indian. It says. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Halle, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah,
Morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, a congregation of love, hope, and justice, inspiring people to take on the challenges of a changing world. My name is Diane Mann, and I am one of your worship associates this morning. We begin by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, learn, live, and worship on the seized ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. We offer a special welcome to those of you who are new or visiting with us for the first time this morning. We are delighted that you are here. We hope that you will join us in Fellowship Hall following the service for refreshments and conversation. If you have questions or desire more information about this service or any of the ministries and programs of this congregation, please do not hesitate to ask. We invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews. These cards can be placed in the offering plate or given to one of the ushers or greeters this morning. For those of you joining us online this morning, we offer you a very special welcome. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better as you are able, please place your name on your video feed. Please take a moment to sign one of the attendance clipboards that are now being circulated. They look like they're way far past me. Though you are not obligated to sign, we appreciate your information and will use it only for church purposes. During our service, we offer an opportunity to share a brief personal joy or sorrow. If you would like yours to be read aloud by the minister, please print it on an index card in the pew and drop it in the collection plate when it comes around. These cards will also be posted outside the minister's office to be shared with our friends at other services. For those online, you can place a joy or sorrow in the chat, and we will read it, share it during this time in the service. In the foyer are listening devices and large print service programs and hymnals for those who may find their assistance beneficial. Please see one of our ushers who will be pleased to assist you. I invite you now to turn your technology to worship mode. And finally, please note the announcements on the back of your order of service. There will be time for short verbal announcements following the postlude. We are so glad you are here and hope that this morning is an opportunity for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. Our opening words this morning are by the Reverend Karen G. Johnston. Let us be a people of not forgetting. As we gather this morning, let us be a people of not forgetting. Let us practice holding collective memories that might otherwise slip into that enormous void that sucks at and corrodes any future we hold dear. Let us practice honoring truth-telling up from the past that must come fully into the now, lest we falter and fail, lest the whole remain in pieces. Let our need for comfort or simplicity, for easy forgiveness or false pardon, smother the heartbreak that still needs healing. Let us practice resilience with reckoning. Let us marry memory and promise. Let us dance in the tension we find there. Let us rest in the integrity we cultivate there. Let us be partners with the possibility that emerges there. It is good we gather.
Join together in our opening hymn number 1069 and 1070. Matt?
And what we're going to do is we're going to have the choir come up. This will be a little bit tricky, but we'll sing 1069 first. We'll go in as a whole, everybody singing the first verse of 1070 next. And then some people, if you would like, can sing 1069 again, while everybody else moves on with the second and third verses of 1070.
This is our way of saying this is a no-fault harmony congregation. You'll sing whatever you want to, right?
Folks who are singing 1069 are new people. So if you want to go back to singing Maybe Mother, follow them. Otherwise, follow me.
Please rise in body or in spirit. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Ancient Mother, I hear your calling song. Ancient Mother, on and on. Ancient hey-ya, 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 ho. Ancient hey-ya, 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 ho. Ancient Mother, I see when you come, oh God. Ancient light of the Spirit, Lord, you take us high. Ancient hey-ya, 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 ho. Ancient hey-ya, 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 ho. Hey-ya, ya, hey-ya, hey-ya, ho. Hey-ya, 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 ho. Wow, you did that well. Someone's had their coffee this morning. I want to call on our youngest among us with their baskets of change for change to come forward at this time. For those of you who are new with us this morning, this is a weekly opportunity for those in our religious exploration program to contribute to the ongoing ministry of the emergency fund of the church. If you have change you would like to share, please do raise your hand and one of our young ones will find you. You can bring those forward to me. We send you forth to your day with wondrous expectations for a grand time. Great, thank you. Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you At this time, I want to invite Sherry Lynn and Jenny Delgizzi forward, and the families of those who would like to dedicate their children this morning to also come forward. Just take one. Would you please turn to the insert in your order of service this morning? Beloved, today is a holy day. For every day is holy when we are blessed with a life beginning. We gather during this time to recognize and dedicate this new life. We gather also to celebrate the hope and wonder that is childhood, to dedicate ourselves to the rich fulfillment of all that learning and care bring forth. In so doing, we recognize the mystery of life as it begins its unfolding, and we celebrate this mystery in song, word, prayer, and promise. Our gift is that of love freely given. With reverence and respect, we dedicate ourselves to the task of parenting and nurturing. Thus do we promise to love unconditionally and to strengthen the bonds of friendship. Please join in our responsive reading. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite and bends you with its might so that its arrows may go swift and far.
Push the right buttons. I lost my spot. I'm sorry. Do you, the parents who have come forth this morning, dedicate yourselves to the care and nurture of your children, in love freely given, to provide for them, to protect them, to encourage their worthy endeavors as they journey forth in a life that is unique and special, to share with them all that love, joy, and blessings have to offer?
Do you, the godparents, grandparents, and family who have come forward this morning, dedicate yourselves to the care and nurture of this child in love freely given, and to support these parents, to embrace them as family, to encourage their growth as they journey forth into a life that is unique and special, to share with them all that love, joy, and blessings have to offer?
I invite you to stand as we read the congregational pledge together. We, the members and friends of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, welcome you and your children.
We hereby pledge ourselves to support, provide for, and nurture these children. We dedicate ourselves to providing all that is necessary for these children to grow to their fullest potential as unique and precious lives within the bonds of this loving community.
You may be seated.
What name do you give this child? Gabriel Antonio Cruz, with water, ancient symbol of purity, I anoint you and dedicate you to the source of your being. I proclaim now that you are loved by parents, family, and friends, that you are, to all who know you and will come to know you, very precious. May your life be filled with joy and blessings now and from this day forward.
May this rose in all its beauty stand as a symbol of this precious life and its unfolding in love and understanding.
Let us be in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, source of new beginning, it is befitting that we come here today to dedicate our children, for it is the season of the child, precious and holy. May these young lives find love, compassion, understanding, wisdom, and patience in all whom they meet here. As we have dedicated ourselves to the process of nurturing, so too do we rededicate ourselves to nurture that child within, that part of ourselves that wonders, awestruck, at life's propensity toward beauty and rebirth. May we all find that nurturing presence within ourselves and the world that surrounds and sustains us. Amen? Amen. I'll just carry him for the remainder of the service. Carry on now. Please welcome our newest child. Thank you.
It'd be nice just to spend the rest of the service just staring at that family and the baby. So my name is Beth Posner-Waldron, and I'm here for the 8th Principle Moment. UU's 8th Principle Task Force aims to educate and inspire our community to incorporate anti-racist and anti-oppressive commitments as part of our faith. The 8th Principle Moment is a monthly opportunity to think more deeply about how racism and oppression manifests in our everyday lives and continue to hold such issues in the forefront of our hearts and minds. So I've been invited to share some of my thoughts with you today, and it's no surprise as the coordinator of the Get Out the Vote team that I will be tying it to voter issues. So we've all heard the term voter suppression thrown around a lot in the past few years, but we don't always think about specifically how it manifests itself. And to me, voter suppression is a subtle and blatant form of racism and oppression. And the voting rights groups that we partner with fight that by educating voters who live in communities predominantly populated with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. So limiting access to reliable information about voting dates and locations, oftentimes information is limited, hard to access, and misleading, and this makes it challenging for anybody to vote. But when we combine it with some of these other issues, it makes it even more important that we get the education out for people to vote. And the groups that we partner with our Get Out the Vote team, UU the Vote, they do research so that we have the most up-to-date information to be able to provide to voters and make it more accurate for them, getting this information and accessible for them to vote. So another form of voter suppression that we've seen over recent years is reducing the dates and polling places for voting. So we know in 2020, during the pandemic, we saw an increase in the availability of being able to vote by mail, take advantage of early voting, And we saw a surge in the number of people who did use these avenues for voting rather than just voting on election day. And this resulted then in the time we got to 2022 in many states passing laws making it more difficult to request a mail-in ballot and reducing the early voting days and sites available, as well as harder to drop off mail-in ballots. And this disproportionately has impacted Black voters who, already being subjects of institutional racism, are more likely to be in low-wage jobs, maybe juggling more than one job, having limited transportation to polling places, especially in rural areas without public transportation. And they may need more options for days and hours to be available to go to vote. So one specific example is in Georgia, where it's popular for predominantly Black churches to hold voting events on Sundays after services. So what happens? Well, Georgia in 2022 passes some voting laws that restricted the number of days available to vote, and they were going to eliminate all of the Sunday voting days. Well, an uproar occurred, and they were able to successfully hold on to a mandate to have at least 2 Sundays available for voting. So another voter suppression technique is gerrymandering. This is where voting districts are carved out that specifically divide regions of minority people into more than one district. And you look at some of these maps and they look like Swiss cheese sometimes. And this means that people in BIPOC communities have less of a majority in voting for a representative of their choice, and weakens their voice when it comes to having a representative that will address their issues. So we just saw some success in this area. The Supreme Court ruled in Alabama in favor of adding additional congressional districts that will likely result in Black voters being able to elect their candidate of choice. And as more congressional maps are being challenged in court, we hopefully will see more favorable rulings like this. Locally in Worcester, we used to have at-large candidates for a school committee, and this resulted in it being more difficult to have diversity on the school committee. So a lawsuit was brought by the local NAACP and Worcester Interfaith, one of the groups that we've worked with, and it was ruled that districts be formed, including 2 in Worcester that are made up of a majority of minority voters. And this makes it more likely that these folks in these communities will be more fairly represented for school-related issues. So when those of you living in Worcester, go to vote, and on November 7th, you'll be voting for a school committee district representative and 2 at-large candidates. The last thing that I want to mention is disenfranchisement for formerly convicted felons and incarcerated people. So in Massachusetts, it is legal for people who are incarcerated while pending trial to vote, yet in the past their rights were interfered with by not having the education and ability to register to vote. So in 2022, the Votes Act was passed, and among other things, this sought to protect the voting power of people who are incarcerated. It was endorsed by UU Mass Action and Worcester Interfaith. And when you consider that Black people are more likely to be incarcerated and being less able to produce bail, and a higher percentage of those being arrested, the Votes Act was very important in fighting racism and oppression. In Massachusetts, convicted felons are able to get their voting rights restored after serving their sentence, but this isn't true in Virginia. Just recently, the governor of Virginia wiped out the registration roster for over 17,000 formerly convicted felons who had previously been able to vote. What he did was he mistakenly treated a technical violation as the same as committing a new felon, and used that as the reason to say you're not able to vote anymore. So right now lawyers are scrambling, working on these folks' behalf to get an immediate restoration of their voting registration one by one so they can participate in their state's November election. And a lawsuit's underway to change the Virginia Constitution so they will have automatic restoration of voting rights, honoring a law that they passed in 1870. So just another minute to tell you a story that has motivated me to make calls to voters of out of state. So back when we were sending postcards to Georgia before one of their elections, I asked Andrea Miller, who's the co-founder of Center for Common Ground, would there be any value in us taking in bulk our postcards and sending them to somebody in Georgia so that they can be mailed out and have a Georgia post mark on them rather than Massachusetts? And she said no. And then she relayed a conversation that she'd overheard at church between two Black women in Worcester. One of them saying to the other, "Did you get a call from that white lady up north telling you to vote? That lady cares about whether I vote. She thought it was important that I vote." And I think about this when I make phone calls, and I am proud to be one of those white ladies calling folks in Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia. So I just take another minute or less to give you an announcement about an upcoming event that we have to help you with the municipal elections that will be here on November 7th. As a church, we're bound by rules that we be nonpartisan and we can't endorse any specific candidate, but we can speak to our values and the importance of electing candidates that best represent those issues that we care about most. So on Tuesday, October 17th at 6:30, we have an educator and activist, Dr. Kara Berg Powers. She's going to be speaking about how to view the elections with an eye towards anti-racism. So there will be an announcement in the message, and you'll be able to attend this either in person or by Zoom. So the link and to register will be in the message this week. Thank you.
Kara Berg Powers is a colleague of mine at Worcester State in the Department of Sociology. She also teaches at Clark University. She is extraordinary. I hope you will take the opportunity to hear her. She has been active in local politics and active in many social justice efforts for years. So I want to tell you a story. I think I want to tell you a story. Oh, that's interesting. I do want to tell you a story, and no, I don't want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story later. Yeah, you're going to really like this story. I do want to take this opportunity to remind us that when we come together as a congregation, we have power. We have power to determine the direction of this community and to imbue the spaces where we occupy and represent ourselves with the values that we hold in common. And it is for that purpose that we symbolically represent that effort every time we come together and take up an offering, an opportunity for us to share that which is symbolic of our own efforts, that which is symbolic of our own values, in service to the ministry and mission of this congregation, but more to the point, in service to the communities that we serve, in order that we might accomplish some of what we have heard yet this morning from Beth, and we'll hear from others in weeks to come. So I invite you to participate in this morning's offering. Lean forward, pull the checkbook out of the person's pocket in front of you. Write that check you have always wanted to write to the church. If you're not going to write a check this morning and you would like to participate in the offering digitally, you're welcome to text 508-231-5335. And our morning offering will now be received. We come to that time in our service when we're given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts or most profoundly on our minds or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired or in prospect of days to come. Joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this morning to come forward and form lines on either side of the sanctuary, to come and speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are so that those using our auditory enhancement devices or joining us online can also participate in this important ritual, and then to light a candle if you so desire. For those of you who are online this morning, if you have a joy or sorrow to share and you want to place it in the chat, we will make certain to include those as well. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day?
Hi, I'm Lynn Gustila. I'm reading this on behalf of my daughter, who just had her son dedicated. She's Elena Andrea. Some of you know her by Elena, which she used to use, her first name. A lot of you know her now by Andrea, her middle name, which now she uses. She's sharing a joy for having everyone here for the dedication of little Gabrielle. The love of the entire family has for us and my children. The opportunity of my children to grow up with their mamita from El Salvador. A joy that Victor just turned 3 and Gabrielle is celebrating his 7-month birthday today. Her sorrow is that William's mother, Mamita, is going back to El Salvador on Tuesday for the winter, and she will be missed by all of us. And Andrea says, Mamita hasn't even left yet, and I already want her back. And on my behalf, I just want to express my joy and gratefulness that this community has provided a place for my daughter to grow up in and to expand her family into. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chloe Hannon. I work in youth services at Worcester Public Library, and yesterday marked the end of Banned Books Week. My sorrow is that there is a Banned Books Week, and I think an even greater sorrow is that we think of challenges in bans as being in other places, Texas, York County, Pennsylvania, Florida. It's very much here. And we've seen it. We've seen challenges come about, and people have very negative views of what librarians and teachers and other people who provide services to youth provide to children. And so I just wanted to piggyback a little bit off of what Erin said earlier about what we can do here affecting our communities. And I guess as a person in library services, I ask that you read banned books and you promote information for young people, especially since the majority of banned and challenge books are by and about queer folks, people of color, and children deserve to see themselves in literature. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura. I definitely need to pay attention to order of services because there's no way I would have showed up today. On September 21st, my granddaughter was born 3 months prematurely, and she passed away 3 days later. My daughter's been in the hospital on suicide watch ever since. DCF has interviewed me, the hospital has interviewed me, and Tuesday I have a meeting for the police department to interview me. So many have reached out from here, more than my family. I got a half an hour each day to FaceTime Rain. Um, and I guess just the child dedication got to me because I didn't realize that was today. And I'm just realizing all the things that she's not going to get to participate in. But I was honored to be able to meet her for about 5 minutes. So I think I'm going to celebrate Mason today, who just turned 3 yesterday. I put makeup on this morning because I really didn't pay attention to this order of service, but I will now.
Good morning, I'm Kim. I hate to showing all my joys, but I am full of joy right now. We had game night on Friday here with like 25 people, and it was wonderful, and come join us next time. Yesterday was my 23rd wedding anniversary, so today is my son's 20th birthday. How did that happen? And I'm rehearsing for 2 shows, which I love being on stage again, so that's wonderful. And yesterday I just found out I passed the MTEL visual art test, so I can be a public art teacher in Worcester Public Schools again. So whew, I really did not think I was going to pass that, and I did. So I'm overjoyed and overwhelmed, and now I need a job.
Good morning. My name is Maya Desai, and I work through this church with the Afghan Refugee Ministry. And my joy today, 20 months ago, we met the Nouri family, Diane and I, and a bunch of other people. They're amazing, and they have a 13-year-old daughter, and she had no English. And also she was the only daughter, oldest daughter of many, many boys. And yesterday she was our translator for a bunch of new Afghan families, and she was able to go from Dari to English seamlessly, and it was just so great to have that support. She's now the team. Her mom is on the team, and that is the change from being someone who needed help resettling to being someone who can help people resettle, and that's amazing. Unfortunately, we needed her help because we was 4 or 5 new families in Worcester. So if you're out shopping, towels, diapers, menstrual products, pillows, and jobs are needed. And there is a sign-up Genius for some of the things that these new families need in the message. And we're going to be adding to that. If you're buying 2 towels, buy 2 more and drop them off. And there's some contact information there. So thanks.
And if you are inclined to participate on the refugee ministry team, speak to Maya today. They need more volunteers. And it would be great if people in this congregation who have a few hours would be willing to work with them. We've seen an influx this year of more Afghan families, and we also have Haitian families that have moved into the area. And there's also a Syrian family. So the need is great, and if you're inclined to participate, please see Maya. Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come today with a mixture of that which is in our heart for the joy of work well done, for the sorrow of unrealized lives, for the beginning of new life and the conclusion of life that has yet to begin. Help us be mindful that we live in the midst of this spectrum, that our responsibility as people of faith is to bring the best of ourselves to all of it. Mindful that our companionship, our sharing of resources, our company, and our friendship can do much to alleviate and to celebrate. We who would represent our best selves in the world look for those places where that presence is most necessary. Be with us in that, for we too need companioning, even as we accompany those deeper into life's many toils and triumphs. For all of this we give great and abiding thanks. Amen, and blessed be. Five of 12. It's a 15-page sermon. Settle in. So now is the time for the reading. Just actually a story out of the Navajo tradition. Long ago, it is said there was a mighty flood, and people left their world, the fourth world, the underworld, and came up to the fifth world, the world that we live in today. They found themselves on the shore of a great ocean. People broke into groups by clan and went out to find new homes, but at the end of 4 days, they came back to the place by the ocean. There's no fresh water to drink in this world, they said. They stood by the biggest body of water they'd ever seen, but it was salty and they couldn't drink it without getting sick. The Navajo say, first woman stood at the front of the people and said, "Who forgot to bring the water?" And then she said, someone will have to go back down to the old world below, back through the hole from which we emerged, and find some fresh water. If I could just have a little water, said first woman, I could sing my water song and make many streams and rivers grow. So first woman, according to the Navajo, is the first human being ever made. She was tall, with strong arms and hands, and a gentle, kind face. Her eyes shone with wisdom and strength. She looked at the people, and her eyes fell on a group that was the Water Clan. So first woman made a beautiful water bottle out of seashells. She put a stopper made of red coral in the opening, and she wove some rainbow into a loop to carry it. When she finished, she held it in front of her and faced the Water Clan. Who will go? She asked. Out of the group came animal people, now otter and beaver. See, long ago, before the world was finished, they say there were animal people. Otter and beaver walked upright on two legs, and they had wide tails like paddles, just like the tails they wear today, and they were great warriors. Other people said, we're from the Water Clan, we are fast swimmers, and we should be the ones to go. First woman smiled at them proudly. The otter said this. She hung the water bottle around Otter's neck, and together Otter and Beaver jumped into the water, and they went down, and they went down, and they went down, and they searched the bottom and walked along the ocean floor, and soon they came to a valley of water lilies. There were lilies of every color, It was so beautiful that Otter and Beaver decided to stop. "We should take some of these flowers and plant them in our new world," said Beaver. "Good idea," Otter said. So Otter put down the bottle, and soon they were both covered from head to toe with water lilies and roots and vines, and they had gathered all they could, and they journeyed back to the world above. And when they came out of the water, the people waiting on the beach were amazed. Otter and Beaver looked like trees coming out of the ocean. "It's us," said Otter. People cried, "Otter and Beaver, come back." Everyone was excited. "Look what we found," said Beaver. "We're going to plant these here in our new home." First woman waited for the water bottle. Otter pulled and tugged at the roots and vines. "I've got it," he said. "It's here somewhere," but he looked and he looked, he couldn't find it. This is kind of like my wife sending me to the grocery store and saying, "Do you need a list?" And me saying, "No, I don't need a list. I can remember," only to come home and realize that I have forgotten the 3 things that she said were most important on that day, right? This never happens to anyone else, correct? I am the only one who does this. Right. Otter said, "I've got it then," and he pulled and tugged at the vines and flowers, but couldn't find the bottle. "I think we forgot it down there." Otter's voice got smaller as he realized what he had done. First woman's eyes narrowed. "I know this look." "This won't do at all," she said. "You two go away. I don't want to see you for a while." Been there, done that. So Beaver and Otter waddled away, dragging their tails between their legs to plant their vines and their flowers. Today we know that Otter and Beaver still surround themselves with water lilies and roots and vines. Next, First Woman sent Frog and Turtle to get the water, and they brought the water bottle back. When they returned, it was filled with salt water. And First Woman sent them away too. First Woman was growing weary of the Water Clan's mistakes, so she was not used to being upset. "We still don't have any fresh water," she said, and someone tugged on her dress. She looked down and saw a thin little girl with long raven black hair. "I'm a snail," said the child. "I'm from the Water Clan, and I'd like to help the people. I want to go get the water." First Woman looked at the people, and the people looked at each other, and everyone knew that Snail was the slowest swimmer of the Water Clan. Nobody thought she would make it, but nobody else wanted to go. First Woman looked at her and said, "You are brave." And she tied a bottle to Snail Girl's back, and Snail slowly slipped into the great waters, and she went down and down and down and down to the land at the bottom, her long black hair flowing behind her. She went past the valley of the water lilies, past the place where Turtle and Frog had gone. Finally, Snail came back to a hole in the sand with bubbles coming out of it, and she went into the darkness of the hole, deeper and deeper, back to the fourth world. There she found some pure water. She tasted it. It was delicious and fresh. It was just enough to fill the water bottle. She carefully placed the copper coral stopper tightly in the bottle, and she went back through the hole and made her journey home. The full moon was shining when Snail Girl came out of the water. She had been gone for such a long time that no one waited for her on the seashore. Slowly, she walked up the hill where she had made her home. She was tired. She didn't feel the rainbow loop coming loose and the water bottle falling off her back. She was so worn out she didn't hear the bottle dragging in the dirt and rocks. She was so sleepy that she didn't notice the water trickling out. Snail Girl went to her home and took the bottle off her back. She looked at it and couldn't believe her eyes. There was a hole in the bottom of the bottle. "It's empty," she said. She was so exhausted she couldn't even cry. She fell to the ground, fast asleep. First woman woke up from a dream. The dream was that Snail had returned. When the first woman believed in the power of her dream, she ran down to the ocean's edge, found Snail Girl's trail up the hill. Halfway up, she saw something shining at her feet in the moonlight. She stopped and reached down to touch it. It was wet. She tasted it. It was fresh water. And she breathed a sigh of relief. Snail had done it. Long ago, they said everyone had a magic song. First woman began to sing her magic song, and small drops of pure water began to grow, and they turned into a trickle at first, and then a stream, and then a river. The river got longer and wider and deeper and faster, and soon the biggest river anyone had ever seen rushed into the ocean. She looked at the river, first woman did, and smiled, and then she remembered Snail. She ran to Snail Girl's home and woke her up. Snail opened her weary eyes and saw first woman, and she said, "All the water is gone. Look at the bottle. There's a hole in it," and she began to cry. First woman's eyes lit up. "Come with me," she said to Snail. They went outside, and a beautiful river ran down the hill to the ocean. "You did this," said first woman. "You carried the water all the way back from the old world. Even though a hole wore through the bottle as you walked up the hill, I got here in time to take a seed of water and make it grow." They stood together at the top of the hill and watched the sun rise over the river. As the people awoke and came out of their homes, they were amazed at what they saw. They whooped and they hollered in joy and happiness. People held a giving thanks ceremony, and everyone sat in a circle, and Snail was the honored one. First woman spoke. "Snail, you are very brave, and we thank you. From this day on, you will carry the water bottle on your back as a symbol of your great journey. You will leave a trail of moisture behind you every place you travel. This will be a message to everyone that your pure water is precious, and we must take care of it." And so it was from that day on. I'll return to this in a moment. I have been struggling over the past 2 days to bring something to you that would speak to you in this moment, because I know that many of you have come into this place having heard news from across the globe that war has commenced between Hamas and Israel. And we are beginning to see images of that devastation. It's a hard thing to want to preach to the place where people are and not having easy answers. The world is a complex place. There are complex histories at play here. There is no easy way to determine a course of action. There is so much that we don't know about what has transpired. And yet I feel as though we need to anchor ourselves to something. So I took and went back to a book that has been one of the sources of inspiration for me in responding to this conflict over time. And it's a book by Rabbi Michael Lerner, who is the editor of Tikkun magazine and runs the Tikkun community. His book, Embracing Israel-Palestine, says in part that both Israelis and Palestinians are victims of post-traumatic stress disorder. He says, "I have a great deal of compassion for both peoples, particularly for my own Jewish people, and I have gone through traumas that have inevitably distorted future generations. Those traumas don't exonerate Israel's behavior or that of Hamas. but they are relevant for those of us seeking a path to social healing and transformation. Yet that healing is impossible until those who are victims of post-traumatic stress disorder are willing to work on overcoming it. I think he's right. And I think we need to observe this moment carefully, because it speaks to us not only of what's happening there, but what can happen anywhere when injured people, when people who have been traumatized are unwilling to do the work necessary to deal with that. He continues in an article in the magazine Cocoon, above all else, I grieve for all the unnecessary suffering on this planet, including the Israeli victims of terrorism, the Palestinian victims of Israeli terror and the repression, the victims of America's misguided wars from Vietnam through Afghanistan and Iraq, and an apparently endless war on terrorism. The victims of so many other struggles around the world, and the less visible but real victims of a global capitalist order in which, according to the UN, some 8,000 to 10,000 children under the age of 5 die every day from malnutrition or diseases related to malnutrition. And yet I affirm that there is still the possibility of a different kind of world, if only enough of us would believe in it and then work together to create it. What's instructive to me about this idea of creating a different kind of world is the juxtaposition of the way in which the symbol of the snail evolves out of indigenous peoples' mythology and the way that it has been interpreted over the years as an example of the kind of thing that happens every day to the narratives that instruct us and energize us. In Mesoamerican cultures, the Maya probably are best known, originating in the Yucatan around 2600 BC, and arose to prominence about 250 AD. In present-day southern Mexico, Guatemala, northern Belize, and western Honduras. The Mayan earth god, the patron of the scribes of the group of 5 unlucky days known as Uyab, emerges from a spiral shell. Ancient culture center of the Mayans has stone building in the form of a cylinder, the observatory for looking at Venus. The observatory is titled El Caracol, meaning snail. In Mayan mythology, the snail was associated not only with creation, but with sexual desire as well. The means for human creation, if you will. The Aztecs were a Mesoamerican culture that flourished in central Mexico in the post-classic period from 1300 to 1521. The Aztec Empire covered most of northern Mesoamerica, and the ancient Aztecs saw the snail as a sacred being because its shell represented the cycle of life. To the Aztecs, the snail was symbolic of time and transition and fertility. Their beliefs are seen in ancient paintings and drawings and carvings of the spiral snail shell. In ancient Peru, around 100 to 700 AD, the Mocha, an agriculturally based society, celebrated mountain sacrifices at the beginning of the rainy season, which was marked by the appearance of snails in large numbers. For the ancient Greeks, snails represented fertility and the fruition of hard work. Presence of snails indicated when crops were ready to harvest. Hesiod, the poet who lived around the time of Homer, documented this, noting that it was harvest time when snails climbed the stems of plants. Aristotle described the snail in detail and invented a spoon that allowed the snail's body to be removed intact from the shell. In early Christianity, the snail was the symbol of sloth. And those who were content only with the material world, however, the snail also was said to symbolize Christ, depending on where you were in the tradition. But that was always something that was argued over. During the medieval period in Europe before the Enlightenment, the snail was associated with laziness. And it was considered an offense to call the person a snail, since it was the symbol of laziness, which was considered the strongest of sins. The snail featured strongly in Gothic marginal warfare. Illuminated manuscripts from the 13th and 14th century depict motifs of man battling a snail. At times the snail was huge, sometimes it was small. It might be across a whole page, and sometimes it might be right underneath a knight's foot. So I want us to think about that for a moment. The idea that in much of the world, the snail is seen as something of virtue, and yet those who represent empire of different sort turn that very symbol into that which is to be despised and that which is symbolized as the victim of conquest, wondering how it is that we move between these worlds. And I think today the question for me is, what is the pure water that snail went to find? Is it a source of life? Yes. But could it be symbolic of the very mythology itself out of which the story of snail comes? Could it be the stories that people need to remember about where they have come from and what they carry on their back and within themselves that helps to give them meaning, a sense that their lives have purpose, that they're related to the past? And what does it mean when empire completely turns the meaning of those things into an opportunity for subjugation? This is less a commentary about Israeli-Palestine, but it ought to be something to give us pause in the West. Because a people who have been subjugated, if they do not deal with their past, often subjugate others. And are we all that different than our Israeli-Palestinian brothers and sisters? If we look at the history of the way in which we treated Native American peoples on this continent, can we come away saying we are more civilized and more peaceful? What water do we carry? And what will we do with it in this moment? Amen? Amen. Would you please join together in our closing hymn, which is not 1027. It is, in fact, in your gray hymnals, number 159. Please rise in body or in spirit. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine. We bring into our hearts all those who have gone before us, says my colleague Leslie Takahashi. All those whose living in this world has prepared the soil for our living. All those whose being has enabled our being. Let us also remember those whose existence is seated in our lives today. Not only those who are our physical descendants, but all those whose spirits inherit the love we sow, the hope we reap, the promise we harvest. May those of us whose religious inheritance is freedom never rest until all who wish to be its children are sheltered.
Our postlude is the song Farewell, My Friend, and the Native American Blessing by Berta Foreman and Sonia Foreman. It's inspired by Native American songs, and within it you'll hear the word Pamamine, which is translated as farewell from the language of the, hopefully say this correctly, Potawatomi Native American tribe of the Great Lakes region. We will speak your name to the wind. We will sing a parting song. We will dance for you on the living path to keep you safe and strong. We will chant your name in the night. Your soul and spirit to renew, we will call the mighty thunder above to keep the storms from you. Farewell to you, my friend. Pamamine, Pamamine. Until we meet again, Pamamine, Pamamine.
We will sing a parting song. I know that there are a variety of things happening this afternoon. Suzanne's going to be in Fellowship Hall, encouraging people to join her next week for the crop walk in Holden. So raise your hand, Suzanne, so people know where to find you. Are there other short announcements this morning? Seeing none, let me remind you that it is Soup Sunday. And for those of you who would like soup, I believe it's $5. I know there's a vegetarian option and another option. I have been kept in the dark as to what they are. Clam chowder and curry lentil. You know who you are. And as always, if you do not have money with you and you want soup, you will be fed. So please know that that's not a barrier. May yours be a wondrous and wonderful week. I hope that you will take time tomorrow to remember yourselves into a rather bruised and hurting world, and that you will return to be with us very, very soon. Thank you so much.